Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Each episode, you'll dive into conversations with top entrepreneurs, visionaries, and business leaders, unlocking the secrets to building profitable relationships that drive growth and success. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, presented by LeDuc Entertainment. Today we are joined by Amanda Baggett, the CEO and owner of the Baggett Personal Law Injury Attorneys. I think I said that wrong. I think it's Baggett Law Personal Injury Attorneys. Excuse me. Amanda, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, and can you tell us a little bit about Baggett Law Personal Injury Attorneys?
Absolutely. So I'm Amanda Baggett. I'm one of the owners here at the firm. We're headquartered in Jacksonville. I own the firm along with my husband, Matt, and we have 3 locations across Duval and St. Johns County in Northeast Florida.
Wow. And can you tell me a little bit about when people come to Baggett Law Personal Injury Attorneys, what are some of the pain points and problems that they're experiencing that you're helping them solve?
Sure, absolutely. So, because we're personal injury lawyers, we help people that are going through the worst times in their lives, quite literally. And beyond that, hiring an attorney is a grudge transaction. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but, there's certain things in life that we have to do, people we have to hire, that we don't want to be in that position in the first place. And so when people come to us, it's really meeting them where they are in that particular, situation, and walking them through the next steps, educating them about, what they need to do, what their rights are, and really walking with them from the first time they call our office.
And can you tell me a little bit about, you have a background in construction litigation, is that correct?
I do, actually, yeah. And so I'm board certified in construction law by the Florida Bar. And so the beginning part of my career, I worked at a very large law firm working on complex construction litigation matters. I ended up with the majority of that work. I was representing engineers in roadway design defect cases, meaning that if someone were to get into an accident, it could even be a single car accident, they would be blaming part of the roadway design or construction for the accident. So common examples you might think of, people hydroplaning on a roadway, and then they say, wait a minute, that wasn't my fault. There was some defect inherent in the way the roadway was designed or built that caused me to have that accident. And so I was on the other side. I was defending engineers in those types of cases. And so they were very complicated. And all it was either catastrophic injuries or deaths. And so I was on the other side of that. And that's how I really learned these complex injury cases from the defense side.
And can you tell me a little bit about what inspired you to move from the construction litigation space into personal injury, and how that background in construction litigation kind of uniquely positions you and gives you a unique insight?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think, like most big changes in life, a lot of things led up to that decision. I'm also a mom of 4 children. I was traveling all over for work, in that position. And it kind of came to a point where it no longer felt great to be on the other side, to be defending the big corporations, to be asking the questions at depositions of, people that had lost loved ones in these situations. I kind of just felt that calling to be on the other side and really to help people that are going through those situations, especially with all the knowledge that I had gained. And so my husband had actually opened this law firm, and then a few years later I joined him, and we partnered up and, are representing plaintiffs in these types of cases now.
Now, I have to ask, now this might be peeling the cover back a little bit too much, but are there any unique advantages or unique challenges that working with your husband at this firm brings up?
I would say it's really a benefit. So we met actually working at that prior law firm years ago. And so we have always worked together. I know so many people say to me, I could never work with my wife, I could never work with my husband. But that's how we came to know each other in the first place, was as coworkers. So it's always worked for us. And I will tell you, I think that the growth of our business, I think, is largely attributable to our relationship, and that we can make decisions any time of day, any day of the week. We don't have to schedule a meeting for next Tuesday to talk about a change we want to implement. I can literally at the dinner table say, hey, I've been thinking about this. And it's just, we can move with much, faster speed, I think, in making those types of business decisions, because we're together all the time.
Right. Well, To that end, I mean, I know, in personal injury, obviously you're working in a setting where, emotions run extremely, extremely high with everyone in the case. A lot of times when people call you, they're having the worst days of their lives. Is it, because you do work in that space with your husband, is it difficult to compartmentalize and say, we got to leave work over here? This is family time. Is it hard to compartmentalize like that?
I don't think it's hard to compartmentalize, but I definitely, we do talk shop.
Sure.
Oops, my okay, my screen just glitched for a second. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Um,
no, good.
we do talk shop a lot, so I think that our children definitely are learning a lot about the law, and about legal cases. So I don't know. We talk about it too much, but it's our passion. We call the law firm. We say it's our fifth child. So yeah.
As the CEO of Baggett Law Personal Injury Attorneys, how do you balance sort of leadership within that role and client advocacy, excuse me?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, that in my role, it's really, I'm kind of overseeing a lot of people that are more on the front lines of our firm,
Hmm.
dealing with, things on a day in, day out. And my role and my husband's role is really, one of supervision. And of course, we know, we're updated constantly about our cases and our clients. So for those cases that we're not personally involved, we always know what's going on.
Sure. And I'm interested, because this is, we speak with a lot of lawyers on the show, but you have a very unique background in, the construction litigation side. Can we dive a little further? Can you tell me a little bit more about, some of the cases, the personal injury cases that you work with that involve roadway deficiencies and what those look like?
Sure, absolutely. And so, a fairly recent case that we had involved a person that was on a motorcycle and it was in an active construction zone. And so, if you can think of on an interstate when they are repaving the highway, you can think about how they strip lanes and then they go and they repave the lanes. Well, the Florida Department of Transportation, as many state departments of transportation do, they have guidelines for what should happen during construction and what the differential in height should be between lanes. You can't go from a lane that has been stripped and then to a lane that has been paved and the height differential be great, because it's difficult for not only cars to change lanes, but motorcycles especially. And so
Right.
engineers have promulgated these rules and these standards based on engineering studies and things. They know what is going to be safe and what's going to be present dangers. And so in that particular case, for example, it was out of tolerance, the paving work that they were doing. And so our client went to change lanes on his way to work, a path that he drove a lot, and lost control of his motorcycle. Lucky to be alive. But that's a pretty straightforward example of those types of cases where it was not anything that our client did wrong. It was just the roadway, the condition of the roadway was out of tolerance with the way that it should have been being constructed.
Do you find that there are particular locations where you see, yeah, a lot of people get hurt right there? A lot of people get hurt right there at that same spot on that road, because I know that there's spots in road here where I am where, there's a couple places on the freeway and where I'm trying to merge and I'm like, oh God, oh God, oh God.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm hyper aware, so I'm always noticing things. For sure. I mean, I would think that I think one thing that people absolutely underestimate is the role that speed plays in car accidents.
Sure.
So as a lawyer in these types of cases, in a lot of car accident cases, we're hiring experts who are called reconstructionists. And so those are expert engineers, and their role is to take all of the physical evidence and determine exactly how the accident occurred, because you have people's memories of how it occurred and you have witness testimony of how it occurred, but sometimes those memories or their perception is a little bit off. And so the reconstructionist can take the evidence and actually put it together to say, this is exactly how it happened, this is how fast the cars were going, this is the
Right.
point at which the cars left the roadway. And it's absolutely fascinating. But so many times, if the speed had just been a little bit lower, it would have changed everything. I mean, I've seen accidents where the accident wouldn't have even occurred if the person was just driving a little bit slower. And so people definitely underestimate the role that speed has in, catastrophic accidents.
Absolutely. When clients come to Baggett Law personal injury attorneys, is your approach to handling their case, is it sort of a one size fits all approach, or is everything you do highly custom tailored to the individual client?
It is absolutely custom tailored to the individual client. And that's something that we really pride ourselves on, are those relationships we develop with each client from the very first phone call. And one thing that we believe very strongly about is client education. It's not just about, we'll handle the legal side of it, don't worry about it. We want them to understand what their rights are, to really understand what's going on in the case. We don't want this to be a handoff situation. We want it to be a partnership situation. And so that is definitely something that's important to us. And even, with regard to our strategy, going from a pre-suit negotiation phase and into litigation, those are very different things. And not everyone wants to pursue litigation. And so we always want to set expectations and educate the client. This is what going into litigation is going to look like for you, and really make sure that they want to pursue that. So it's a lot of communication and making sure that the strategy is custom to them, to their situation, to their case, and that they're informed every step of the way. That's critical.
Right. And if everything is kind of highly custom tailored, can you tell me a little bit about what the discovery phase looks like when a client comes in?
Sure. And so discovery, that is a term that we use in litigation, which is just the exchange of evidence between, the parties in a lawsuit. But way before that, we do discovery on our part. We are doing our own investigation. So in a car accident, for example, we are looking at the police report. What does the police report say? We're talking to witnesses. We are looking at the evidence, the photographs and things like that. We're speaking to their treating physicians. We're gathering all of that information to make sure that we have absolutely every piece of evidence that we need to formulate our strategy. And then we have all of that. So then when we move into litigation and the real discovery, the litigation discovery phase commences, we have all of that and we're ready. And there's rarely anything that we are gathering at that point other than updated records and things like that.
Sure. And can you tell me a little bit about, as being a female CEO of the Baggett Law Personal Injury Attorneys, what advice do you have for young women looking to enter the legal profession? And furthermore, I guess, how do you empower women already in that space?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think that the best advice that I could give to anyone, really in any profession, anyone that's, wants to chase their dreams, is to always take the opportunity, always say yes. I think that sometimes, we let our own fear and insecurity and lack of confidence kind of hold us back, or we might feel like, well, I haven't done that thing before, and so I'm hesitant to do it. What if I don't know what I'm doing? I just think that always raising your hand, always saying yes, always taking the opportunity, because the reality is so many people, that's how they learn. No one starts a new position knowing exactly how to do it. They're figuring it out. And so I think that taking those sorts of risks and saying yes to everything is going to get you so much farther.
That's amazing. Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice, no matter who you are. And you were a former shareholder at Rogers Towers. Is that correct? At Rogers Towers?
Rogers Towers, yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, it's a great firm. I absolutely loved my time there. It's a big firm. It's a full service firm. And so that's where I was working in construction litigation, complex commercial litigation. I loved it. Very different environment than our firm now. We're much smaller. Hundreds of people work at that firm. And so it was just a great starting point in my career, learning, kind of the big law way. And so, yeah, it was amazing. And I got to be a part of recruiting new lawyers to the firm and things like that. So it was a great experience. And I'm glad I got to see that side of things, all the billable hours and those kind of things that people traditionally, I think about when they think of a lawyer at a big law firm.
Absolutely. And you have been named, speaking of lawyers, you have been named to Super Lawyers annually since 2009. Can you speak now? I know what Super Lawyers is because I work in this space, but can you tell us a little bit about what Super Lawyers is for those who
Sure.
may not know?
Yeah, sure. So every year, it's a list that comes out, and a large part of it is your name has to be nominated, and it's a vote by your peers, and so other lawyers are nominating you and voting on you, and so I really have to attribute that to all of the amazing professional connections that I've made over my career. I'm a very friendly and outgoing person, and I really genuinely love people, and so I'm just grateful for all of those connections that I've made and that people keep voting for me.
Right. Now, and you mentioned that you're a friendly, outgoing person, and I'm curious because obviously you made the switch from construction litigation to personal injury law because you want to help people. Is that drive to sort of, help the little guy instead of the corporation? Is the drive to help people just something that's innate to you as a person, or is that a characteristic you've cultivated along the way?
I think that that's innate to me as a person. When I was a little girl, I wanted to be a police officer. That was
Mm,
what I wanted to do. I just saw myself, helping people, being the good guy and going after the bad guy. And so that definitely is something that I've had in me since childhood. But I will say that becoming a mom, I think unlocked, even a deeper reservoir in myself, just that passion for really helping people. And again, it really comes down to, um, unfortunately, most people don't even understand what their rights are. People don't even know what type of car insurance they have, let alone how it works, what they should do after they've been in a car accident. And so things like that, I think, kind of keep me up at night. I think that, the playing field should be leveled and everyone should have access to that basic information, and it shouldn't be complicated. So yeah, I think breaking it down for people and helping people in that way, just helping educate them, on these basic kind of legal issues is really important to me.
And I'd love to dive a little bit more into that because, you mentioned that, having the children and becoming a mother, unlocked that for you. You work with your husband. Can we dive a little bit more into the role that family plays in your business?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I think that the way that family plays a role in our business is really our perspective that each client is not an individual, but what's happened to them in their case has a ripple effect on everyone around them. And so
Mm,
take for example, a mother that has, let's say two young children. If that mother has been injured and she has to now deal with doctor's appointments, physical therapy, chiropractor appointments, all of those appointments are going to take time away from her usual schedule. But beyond that, the chronic pain that she's in, and just the most basic things that we take for granted, those of us that don't have any limitations take for granted, picking your child up, getting down on your knees to give your child a bath. Those basic things are things that are taken away from people in an instant. And so, really, it's a ripple effect. It's not just, it wouldn't in that case just be the young mother and the pain she's going through, but how has it impacted her children? How has it impacted her husband and all those people in her life that are now, coming to help her? So I think that is one way that we really look at our clients. We look at it as, we're helping families, and communities, not just individual clients in a lot of these cases.
sure. Now, and this is another thing. I guess this goes back to the super lawyers thing a little bit. I guess I'm going back a little bit. But you also have an AV preeminent rating from Martindale Hubble, and that I do not know about. Can you explain that to our audience and to me? Because
Sure. And so that's something else that other lawyers in the community vote on, or they rate you. And so when you apply for a rating, they send surveys to other lawyers in the community to ask about you. What kind of a lawyer are you? What is your skill set? What is your level of professionalism? Professionalism is something that I've always prided myself on, that I take very seriously. And I think most lawyers do, some don't, and the ones that don't, I think, are the ones that give lawyers a bad name, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm very prideful of that, and just professionalism, in my job as a lawyer and as owner of this firm.
well, and you also are very heavily involved in your local community. Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
And can you tell me a little bit about the school backpack drive and what your work is with that?
Yes, and so we have an annual backpack drive where our firm provides all the backpacks and school supplies, and we have a big event. It's at a local elementary school, and anyone is welcome to come and get a backpack and school supplies. It's small things like that several many families in our community, that's an added expense that they can't afford, and we're happy to provide that. We make it fun. We have ice cream and lots of fun things going on for the kids, and so it's just a really awesome community-wide event that we sponsor, and we love doing it, love connecting with people, and the kids have a blast.
And you're a member of several nonprofit and educational boards as well, is that right?
I am. I have, served on some. I'm currently serving on some. My mother was a teacher, and so I grew up around education. And again, I think because, educating people was important in my role, I think I've just had a natural lean into some organizations like that. And so I served on the Early Learning Coalition here in Jacksonville for many years. I loved my time there. I currently serve on the board of my children's school here in Jacksonville Country Day School, which is a phenomenal elementary school. And then I've just had various other roles on boards and things like that over the years.
Being a member of those educational boards and being a mother, do you find that those sort of leadership roles tie back? I mean, what overlaps do you see with that and being the CEO?
That's a great question. And I think that it just kind of goes back into that family-centric approach that our firm has. And then also, I kind of jokingly say that I'm the mom of all of, the kids here leading our team, at Baggett Law. I really do. We care so much about our team. We've worked really hard to cultivate a great team here. And so it's one big happy family.
And I mean, in that leadership role, do you find ever that you almost have to take that kind of position of reprimanding, or how do you keep everybody sort of guiding towards the same goal?
This is the way that I handle it, and this is probably a very unpopular way to do it, but I make sure that everyone on the team knows, and we repeat this, often. If ever there comes a time when anyone here that works at Baggett Law doesn't want to work here any longer, whether they want to make a total career switch, they want to try a different firm, not every job is for every person all the time. I will help them find another position. And I mean that sincerely, right. And I have done that for people. And so, once, if anyone is working here and they are no longer passionate about the work that we're doing, then it's time for them to find something else to pursue. And so I think I'm a very laid back leader in that regard, but people know that I mean that. I mean what I say. And so, again, we have a great team and everyone is passionate about the work that we're doing. But if there ever comes a time that they're not, I'm happy to, help them find the next thing.
Right. Recently here at LeDuc Entertainment, we have really sort of honed in and niched down on our focus. Can you maybe speak about the importance of finding your niche or your niche or however you want to pronounce that?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I think, you can't be everything to everyone. And if everyone likes you, you're not doing it right. And so I think that's critical, and we certainly have done that. When my husband first opened the firm years ago, he took a lot of cases that now we wouldn't necessarily take. So we definitely have niched down to handling, catastrophic injury cases, wrongful death. We handle complex medical malpractice cases, things like that, but those types of cases take a tremendous amount of time. And so we can't take every case, for every person that calls our office. But one thing we're committed to doing is helping everyone who calls our office find resources or a law firm that can help them.
Right. And when you think back on all of the people that you have helped through Baggett Law Personal Injury Attorneys, is there a case that you can maybe share with us? Is there a case that really stands out in your mind of an individual, a business, a client, where you really saw a positive transformation in them as a result of your help and guidance?
That's such a great question. And I don't know if I could pick just one, but the cases and the results that stand out for me are not not necessarily the ones where we got the best result that we've ever had. It's the ones where years later, and this actually happened about a year ago, and this was a case that my husband and I handled, over a decade ago. One day at the office, a lady showed up, and it turned out it was the wife of a husband whose case we handled over a decade ago. And she, came into the office and she said, I just wanted to come by and personally thank you guys again for the amazing job that you did. And I think about you all the time. And I know, that we said thank you when you were wrapping up the case, but I don't think I've ever really come to tell you just how, life-changing that was for us and how much we appreciated you. And that
Wow.
just meant everything. We were blown away, that had been on her heart for all those years, just to stop by and say thank you again. So
I mean, that's pretty incredible, having that lasting impact on people. And I mean, looking to, I'm curious, looking back, you mentioned that was over 10 years ago, you said? In that space, that period of time, have there been any trends in the personal injury space and the personal injury field that you've seen come and go? Has there been any changes over that period of time?
There have been legal changes for sure. I think, insurance companies are always learning new tricks, and things like that, I would say. And the economy, I think, certainly can correlate at times with, how insurance companies behave. And so sure. I think that it's, that things do tend to change periodically.
Sure. And when you look ahead the other way, when you're looking to the future, do you predict any changes, on the horizon?
Well, cars are always becoming safer.
Right.
That really is something that we talk about. Cars are always becoming safer. Laws are always changing. And really, I think the one thing that has changed a lot is how people find lawyers. It used to be, remember, I'm certainly old enough to know about the phone book, and people looking, at the yellow pages and things like that. And then, for a lot of people, it was asking people they knew. Well, now so much of it is Google. Even if you get a personal recommendation for a lawyer, you're still going to Google that person to find out more about them. And so I think really I would say, what's more rapidly changing is the way in which people are getting their information. It's even true with AI now. People are asking AI,
Right.
who's the best lawyer, things like that. So I think that is more of a rapid change probably than the way the laws are changing in these types of cases.
And I'd love to dive into that a little bit more. What other impacts do you think AI is going to have on the legal space?
Well, that's a really good question. I think that right now, I definitely think people should be very cautious of AI. AI is still just gathering what's out there on the internet for answers. And AI, we joke with our clients, AI can't go to court for you. AI can't take, the opposing party's deposition and things like that. I think AI is a great way to get probably some very basic answers for people
Right.
that have, possible cases. It can give you some very basic answers, much like you can get basic, tax advice online, but you really need to speak with an attorney about your specific case to understand the nuances in your case and how that might be different from basic advice that you might find through AI.
Right. Well, and this is the other thing. I'm curious because you're especially in this space, with the background in construction litigation and everything that you do. I'm curious. Another technology that's on the horizon right now is self-driving cars. How do you think that's going to impact the personal injury space? I didn't do it. It was the car,
Yeah, I think I think that goes hand in hand with cars are getting safer all the time. I know that, people that do have these cars that you can put onto a kind of a self-driving mode, I've heard from them that the cars react faster than they would.
Whoa.
Yeah, so and I think all of that is true. So I do think that cars are getting safer. I think that the self-driving cars, I think, it's just a matter of time. I think before
Right.
we see more and more of that, which is great. It's great for people. There will always be things that we can help people with, and so safety is, definitely a priority.
And do you think that those self-driving cars are going to put people on the road that maybe wouldn't have been on the road previously? People that were, too elderly to drive or had handicaps that prevented them from driving. Do you think that that's going to be more drivers on the road as a result?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I'm not sure about that. I don't know. I don't know, but you're right. I think that definitely could open up, some possibilities, for sure. It's still, I think I'm still old enough that makes me a little bit nervous to have someone that otherwise should not be driving in a car if something were to happen. It's like I always tell my kids who are still too young to drive, but that's why the law doesn't require you to wear shoes when you drive. But what if, you get a flat tire or something? You don't want to be, standing out next to your car with no shoes. It's kind of the same idea. I would think you'd want to be prepared in case you needed to take control of the vehicle. So
absolutely. And you don't want anybody sleeping. Oh, the car's got it.
Right.
I'm gonna take a quick nap.
Yeah.
Well, Amanda, this has been an absolutely fantastic conversation, and thank you so much for coming on the show. If anybody out there listening could use your help, could use the help of Baggett Law personal injury attorneys, where can people find you?
It's very easy. 904 Law Firm. That's our phone number. Give us a call. Again, even if we can't take your case, we would love to help you find resources or even try to match you with a law firm that can help you.
Awesome. Amanda, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Great. Thank you. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been Partnerships for Profit presented by LeDuc Entertainment. Amanda, thank you so much again.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.